Girl, you got it. Girl, you got it. Girl, you got it. Wow. Girl, you got it. Girl, you got it.
If you're looking to change careers, level up at work, get a promotion, or maybe expand your scope in the workplace, let me tell you what I learned the hard way. Doing great work is just not enough. You have to strategically select your projects. You have to amplify it to the right people. You have to focus on impact and value that you add. So if you're ready to learn the strategies that I've leveraged to do this over the past 22 years, make sure you check out my LinkedIn Learning course, Stand Out as a Power Performer. I'll be sure to drop the link in the show notes. And if you like this episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Urban Girl Corporate World podcast. And you can also join my Winner's Circle newsletter at NicoleDove.com. Let's get into the show. Happy Hump Day, and welcome back to the Urban Girl Corporate World podcast, your one-stop shop for all things winning at work. I'm your dopest hostess with the mostest, Nicole, and I'm so happy that you guys came back to join us for another episode. You know what's funny? I say happy Hump Day, happy Wednesday. I usually am not recording on Wednesday, but today is actually a live Wednesday recording. We are here in San Francisco at RSA 2026. So these, conference recordings are becoming a thing, right? We started out with Afrotech. We did one before at the AWS conference. We also did one Black Hat MEA in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And here we are in the Bay here at RSA. So again, Urban Girl Corporate World Season 8 is hashtag UGCW Shorts, where I am answering all the FAQs that I get all the time from people. And so since I get all of these repeat questions, I figured, you know what? It would just be great to do a podcast episode where I can answer them all. And then you guys are not restricted by the lack of availability on my calendar, but you're still able to access this very important information. So we've done a few of these. I think we've done about 4 already this season. And since I'm actually here at a conference where there are so many people who are pitching ideas, who are looking for new opportunities, who are building collaborations and partnerships, I thought it would be a great opportunity to do an episode about career transitions. Now, if you know anything about me, I do not have a very linear career path, okay? My career path is anything but predictable. I went to school for finance and accounting. I wanted to work on Wall Street. I was able to start my career on Wall Street at an investment bank. After that, I moved into the Big Four accounting, audit, and consulting space for a few years. Then I got into video gaming, still in the audit and, risk management space, and then moved into international operations, building, staffing, and managing teams in India, Philippines, Romania, Brazil, and shortly thereafter moved into cybersecurity. If you would have told me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would be working in tech and cyber, I'd be like, yeah, not happening. But here we are. And many of us find ourselves in spaces where, like I was, the career that we originally sought out is not what we expected it to be, right? Or the opportunities, the growth opportunities that we were hoping for at a particular company may not have been there, may not have been so available. And so one of the things I want to encourage you, if you are young in your career, don't put the pressure on yourself for your first job to be that perfect job. Yes, there are some people, but it's more exception than rule, who find a great company, find a great job that's a perfect fit, and they stick at that company and maybe within, that role or that line of business for their entire career. But I can tell you, for every one of those people I meet, there are at least 100 who that's just not their reality. So I don't want you to feel bad or put pressure on yourself to be in that 1%. Right? The reality is there's going to more than likely be a timeline in your career where things are going to have to change. And change doesn't necessarily feel good all the time, right? Like even as a leader, even with this whole AI bit, right? The pace of change is amazingly rapid, but the governance, the structure, the operations, the security, the changes that we need to make in identity and content protection and sensitive data protection, right? Like all of that change is just very unfamiliar, right? And humans, I think we like a little bit of familiarity. I know I certainly do. So I just want you to walk into this conversation that I'm about to have with myself in front of you about career changes with an open mind. Okay. So for all the people who keep asking me about how to transition into cybersecurity or how to transition into a new role or how to transition into leadership, this episode is for you. Okay. And not only am I doing it because people are asking me, but I also recognize that people are doing this the wrong way, right? I had a conversation with a young professional just a few weeks ago, and what they expressed to me was that they were very angry. And I'm like, okay, well, what is that anger rooted in? And what they said was they were very angry because they had been bending over backwards in their role, taking on all of this extra work, and they were not being recognized for it. And what they specifically called out was that they were not being promoted. Being promoted, right? We talked about on the last episode how to land a promotion, but being promoted or landing a new role or making a change into leadership is not just about you taking on a bunch of work and burning yourself out and hoping to be recognized for it. There is no, you know, all this extra work I did is going to get me a new role. That's not how it works. Okay. And it's really not a jump into something new. It's really a transition. It's really, really a bridge. And I think a lot of times when I talk to a lot of young people specifically, or even some mid-career professionals who are looking to come into cybersecurity, they are overextending themselves and overvaluing credentials and certifications. Now, don't get me wrong. Credentials are great. Certifications are great, right? I've got a couple myself. However, you can't just focus on the credentials. You need to focus on strategic positioning. So we're going to talk about some of the elements that will help you strategically position yourself for new roles. We're going to go over a little bit of a framework that I've used. The first thing I want you to be able to do is clarify the target, right? So here's a funny thing. I got an instant message last week on social media from somebody in my network who is looking for a new opportunity. And they basically said, hey, I was impacted. If there's any open roles, let me know. Okay, go ahead. What kind of role? What level role? Right? Or even if you don't know what the name of a role is, like what is it that you want to do? So for example, when I was moving from risk into global operations, I didn't know that global operations is what I wanted to do, but I knew three things. One, I knew I didn't want to do the same thing every day. I wanted something that had variety and spice and surprise, right? Like those types of things invigorate me. The second thing was that I wanted to work on a more global scale, more global capacity. At that time, I saw how technology was impacting how we worked, how it was expanding teams, right? How we got 24/7 coverage. And I wanted to be on the forefront of that and shaping what that looked like for the organization that I worked with. The other thing was that I knew I wanted to work with all levels of leadership, people all throughout the organization. And that was specifically because, one, I just love talking to people and learning about people's stories and what they do and what their outcomes are and how they're achieving them or what's blocking them from that. But also, I just find that the perspective at the C-suite level is so different from the customer-facing level, but I think both are very important, right? So I didn't know what that role was. I didn't know what it was called, but I knew that those were three non-negotiable things that I wanted to do. And so once I saw the opportunities, I began to look for the opportunities. It was great to have that criteria for me to make a go or no go. And so making sure that you're clear, you give people direction, because calling people and saying, hey, I need a job, but not telling them what your experience is in and what level you like to work on, it's not really giving people much to work with. Some people are not as patient with me and are not going to ask. They'll just say okay. But I can guarantee that you will likely get much more engagement and much more response when people have an idea of who you are and what you seek out. Okay. Now, the other thing that I got to learn, especially moving from risk into cybersecurity, was that you're not starting over. Sounds crazy, right? I thought going from audit to cyber was going to be like, okay, do I have to go in at the ground level or, like what is this going to look like? But I actually realized that there were so many transferable skills that I had in risk that applied so nicely into cybersecurity that I really just had to make the translation for the recruiter or the hiring manager, right? So you need to be able to figure out, because I feel like each
kind of industry or role, like they have their own language, right? Like, many of us do the same things, but we call it different things. And so you need to be able to understand that language. I had to learn how to translate the skills and impact and outcomes that I was able to create within the risk and global operations space into cybersecurity speak, right? And that's going to be really helpful for your interviews as well. So make sure that you're able to map the transition. So if you've seen, I have a course on LinkedIn Learning called Becoming a BISO, and I actually map out my career journey and how I moved from audit and risk management into the business information security officer role. I talk about how I got the job description, right? Printed it out. I'm a little bit of a visual person. And I actually went through and highlighted the things that I had, right? Highlighted the things that I didn't have. And then I began to map out, like, okay, for the things that I have, how is that translatable into cybersecurity? What would a project like that in cybersecurity look like? And for the skills that I didn't have, right, I mapped out, like, okay, how am I going to learn this, right? Like, what does this mean? What is this trying to achieve? And then how can I relate that to something similar, right? So that was super important. And then the last thing that I wanted to highlight, and this is so important for career changers, you need to be able to speak to what is it that you're going to bring to the table that the person with the typical expected profile for this role is not going to have. What is your secret sauce? That becomes the premium that you bring to the role. So now the conversation is no longer, oh, Nicole doesn't fit the bill. No, it's Nicole has a lot of skills that we can leverage in this role. She's been doing that for a long time. But there's also some additional things that Nicole is going to bring that the typical XYZ person may not have. And here's how it's going to benefit the organization, right? So you want to create that lift for yourself. You want to create that premium. And you also need to focus on the actual work that you do. Skills are one thing, right? But how does that translate into actual projects, right? Like, what are the projects that you worked on? What are the outcomes and the value that you created? Okay. So when I talk to a lot of people and they're like, I want to work in cyber. What do you want to do? I want to be an analyst. Okay, that's great. We have many analysts in cyber. There are like at least 10 domains. Which domain would you like to work in and why, right? Be able to answer why this role, okay? And then I want you to be able to talk about the projects that you've led or the projects that you've participated in, right, within those capacities. That's amazingly important. So many people overextend and focus on, I want to work in cyber, I want to be an analyst, and I have my Security Plus, and I have my CISSP, and I have this, and that. Great, it's fine. Having that theoretical knowledge is a great baseline. But if I'm thinking about you as a practitioner and what you're going to bring to this team, let me tell you something. When you get hit with that first cybersecurity incident, you're not pulling out your CISSP study book, right? Like, things in practice are learned through experience. I know so many seasoned, phenomenal. Some of the best security leaders I know don't have a college degree, right? But they have experience. So take all of that as an inspiration to not beat yourself up because you may not have XYZ certifications, right? I'm not saying don't pursue the certification, but I would also say make sure you look for projects that you can work on. Make sure you look at projects that you've done and be able to close the gap, all right? Another thing, and this goes back to the example that I mentioned earlier about the professional that I had a talk with just a week or two ago. Visibility is so important, right? So many people think if I just do all this stuff and people just see me doing all this stuff, they will come to me. I even had a manager when I was in Big Four brag that they had never sought out a promotion, that people always asked them if they wanted to be promoted. And when they spoke about that, I got the impression that it was a flex, right? Like they were saying that as if like, I'm so great or, I'm so well known or whatever. I don't know. But they were just basically like, yeah, people ask me, do I want to get promoted? And you know what? 20 something years later, looking back, I'm just like, how ready were you for that promotion before somebody noticed? What would your career trajectory look like if you sought out the promotions when you truly believed that you were ready? It's not to say that it wouldn't have happened every time, but who's to say that it wouldn't have? You never know. Your career is yours to manage. It's all on you, right? And I will tell you, I've always had to advocate for myself. Every single promotion I've had to have that initial conversation of like, hey, I'm interested in moving up the ladder. What is it that you need to see? And then working with my leaders to make sure that the projects that I'm scheduled on, for the most part, give me the opportunity to show those things that they need. And then following up with them and saying, hey, are you noticing that I'm doing these things, right? So self-advocacy is amazingly important. You are not going to transition in silence. You're not, especially, in this market, right? Like things are a little bit tense. Opportunities are scarcer than they were 5 years ago, right? And so many career transitions are happening because of relationships. I was actually here on the expo floor talking to somebody from my old organization. I hadn't seen them in a couple years, and they were, talking about the moves that they made, and the dots all connected. We last worked together in 2018, and every move they've made since then has been connected to a relationship, to them talking to somebody about what it is that they want to do, and then those opportunities, leveling up and them finding, people who were connected to those opportunities. So please stop trying to put your head down and hope somebody notices or think it's a flex for somebody to ask you, right, wrong, or indifferent if it is. I want you to make sure that you're managing your career, and a big part of that is visibility, right? So connecting with your managers, your supervisors, making sure that they know that you're seeking growth and promotion or career transition opportunities, right? I will tell you, when I was at ADP, I had 3 different careers. And every time before I made a shift to one of those other careers, I was already over talking to people in those departments. Tell me about what you do every day. What's on your roadmap for this year? What's the biggest thing that you're proud of accomplishing last year, right? We developed rapport, we developed relationship, and even in many times we developed trust, because I may have worked with that team before, right? So they knew the value of my work and what I was bringing to the table. So please stop trying to, real G's don't move in silence, right? When it comes to transitions, you've got to be a little bit more forward, right? And then make the ask. Right? Just be very direct about it. Again, one of the big things, and this kind of goes, with the last point that I just made, but one of the things was in having those conversations with management and your leaders, for me, it was very much like, I want to be promoted to X. What is it that you need to see from me? Or maybe a little bit of a softer transition to that is, I want to be promoted to a manager, for example. And from what I've seen in either in the job description, because you can go and pull that, or from the managers on my team, people who are already in those roles, this is what they really bring from a value perspective to the team. This is what their core responsibilities are. Is that accurate? If not, tell me what is, right? And then if so, what do you need to see from me that will give you the confidence to promote me into that role? And can we work together to craft a development path, right, through my projects where you can get assurance, you can get comfort, you can get evidence that not only am I capable, but that I'm actually doing that. That was how I actually got my first promotion at ADP. And what actually came from that was my first stretch assignment. I was actually going for an audit manager role, and our audit managers in that construct, they managed audit engagements end to end, scoping all the way to reporting. And my proposal was, let me lead an engagement like a manager. And they did. And it was a phenomenal engagement. I was assigned a team, right? We did all the things, work papers, came up with recommendations. The report was phenomenal, right? And so now it's not me asking to be something, but it's me proving that I have the chops and I have the capabilities and the skills and the talent to do it. Once you've proven that, it's like, hey, what's holding me back from moving into that role, right? So if you have been thinking about making a move, making a career transition, again, stop waiting until you're ready. Right? Start positioning yourself now. Start having those conversations now, because you want to make sure that you have clarity on what it's going to take to get there. Okay? Listen, if you are thinking about transitioning into cybersecurity, if you're in cybersecurity and you have a very niche or particular domain expertise, and you recognize that as you move up the ladder throughout the industry or within our ecosystem, that you're going to need a broader standard of knowledge, right? You can't just be one domain focused. You've got to understand how all the domains contribute to the posture of your cybersecurity program. I've got a gift for you. It is a gift because you can't buy it yet, but I'm writing my first book called Learning Cybersecurity Fundamentals. I would make sure that the link to the book, I'm doing an exclusive sneak peek, will be included in the show notes. And you can go over and take a look. I'm publishing it in partnership with O'Reilly. It's my first book. I'm so excited. But if you're interested in a career in cybersecurity and you don't know what exactly you want to do, this will help. If you're interested in learning more about what cybersecurity is, this book is going to help. If you're interested in learning about how other cybersecurity teams other than yours operate or what are some standards or best practices, this book is for you. It's essentially going to give you the 20% that's really important that you need to know 80% of the time. Right? It's going to have you speaking the language and understanding the jargon and understand what world-class cybersecurity teams are doing and are focused on. All right? So make sure you check that out. Listen, it's been fantastic giving you guys one of these live podcasts from these conferences. It's so exciting. I'm having a wonderful time here at RSA. If you have not been to RSA, you need to come, especially if you're in the security or privacy industry. As you guys know, I'm on the board for Women in Security and Privacy. We do have scholarships to attend these conferences. So if you're not a member, please join. I know that's going to be in the show notes as well. But that's all I've got for you guys today. All right. So be great. Be inspired. I appreciate you coming to another episode. Listen, if you have not liked, subscribed, or shared this podcast, what are you waiting for? We've been here 8 seasons. Help me help you help me. Okay? So please make sure you support us. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We would greatly appreciate it. And if you've got any questions, shoot us an email, urbangirlcorporateworld@gmail.com. That's it for today, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Girl, you got it. Girl, you got it. Girl, you got it.